back in May of 2007, this is almost 14 years ago. My gosh, time is flying. I posted a series of blogs on my personal blog at Calacanis.com. And the first one was, I would pay for Twitter.com. Literally 14 years ago, I said I would pay for this. And I was proposing in that blog post a 100-year premium offering, 3 times what they're charging for this Twitter Blue product, this rumored Twitter Blue product, and that it would give you a dedicated server, independent, and would be faster, some more features, and better speed. And this was because there was a really acute problem in the early days of Twitter. It would take a long time to post your message, and it was slow, and it crashed. A year later, in May of 2008, I posted Twitter Pro. 1 year later, same request, take my money for less downtime. And here's the quote. I still think there's a huge market, perhaps 1 to 5% of Twitter base that would pay for a professional account. If 1% of 10 million users, because that's how many they had at the time, would pay $20 a month or $250 a year, you're looking at 100,000 paid users at $250 a year each. That's $25 million in revenue. Probably too high of a number in terms of the price per user, and obviously too low of a number in terms of where they actually wound up. In Q1, Twitter had 199 million monetizable daily active users. Yeah, so MDAU is monetizable daily active users. Most people say daily active users. I think what they're doing here, Twitter, when they say monetizable daily active users, is taking out bots and people maybe who would never pay. If 1 to 5% of those paid $250 a year, that would be 2 million to 10 million users, and that would be 500 million to 2.5 billion a year. And so that would be approximately, at 5%, 250 a year, that would be 67% of their 2020 revenue. Now that price is too high. That might work actually. That would be cheap for professional accounts. So if you were a journalist, if you were a CEO, if you had a corporate account, those numbers actually would be quite reasonable because people already pay for things like Buffer, where they pay for analytical tools, etc. And they obviously have people on staff who are getting paid well to staff their Twitter accounts. So $250 a year for a professional Twitter account is not that big of a deal. If 1 to 5% of those same users on Twitter paid this, alleged $299 price, $36 a year, that'd be 72 million to 360 million a year. What's interesting about that number is it would be 100% profit. I mean, you might have some fees if they allowed it through the App Store and gave a 30% cut to somebody like Apple or Google. But essentially, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, and it would probably become 10%, 20% of their revenue. Of course, you'd lose some ads on the margins, but the truth is, Twitter has been known to not show ads to the most important accounts. In other words, if you've got over 100,000 followers, you're probably going to not see so many ads, or at least that's the rumor. In January of 2008, I gave Twitter, or I speculated, this is before Twitter had revenue turned on, that they would have 3 wildly lucrative businesses: in-feed advertising, which is obviously how they generate revenue today, subscriptions, and SMS advertising, because at the time, SMS was a big piece of the Twitter experience. In fact, Twitter started as an SMS service. Most people don't know that. Obviously, that's been deprecated. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It only took them 13 years, but here we are. Back in March of 2009, I asked Twitter if they would take $250,000 from me. It was a sincere offer, by the way, to become a default user. And that would make me featured. And I thought it would result in 5,000 or 10,000 people following an account a day. And I had a product called Mahalo Answers at the time, which was kind of like Quora, but with a virtual currency in it. I kid you not. It had Mahalo dollars where people would get these dollars and then they could cash them out for other products and even gift cards. So it was, before cryptocurrency, we had a concept of virtual currencies. It was a precursor, and I owned @questions and @answers. So I was like, oh, if we get @questions, we could promote that product or service. I should have kept that going because it obviously is valuable. And here are some quotes from that article. Of course, I was only half bluffing with this move. I was 90% sure Twitter wouldn't take my money and I wouldn't have to pony up the $250,000 check. However, if they did call my bluff and cashed it, the $250,000, I actually would have gotten what I wanted: 2 to 10 million Twitter followers and the ability to drive 1 to 2 million visits to Mahalo a month from Twitter. Because at the time, that would be, an expected click rate, 5, 10, 20%. That's obviously changed dramatically as the number of dead accounts on Twitter has increased. My plan was to post the top 5 most absolutely fascinating questions a day from Mahalo Answers. and do that to the @questions account, which I still own to this day. The point is that Twitter has the ability to unleash a direct marketing business, the likes of which the world has never seen. I predict they will, and when they do, they will make the Twitter naysayers look like the donkeys they really are. Note, you ever notice the folks who have the most to say about making money are the ones who've never made any? Exactly. Wow, I used to be a little spicy in my writing there. Woo. Full contact blogging. Twitter is a giant open email box that we all hang out in every day. The power of Twitter is yet to be fully understood in the same way email and the web weren't fully understood. That's actually pretty prescient. I give myself some credit for that. And that's a nice metaphor, actually, the open email box.